local news leader. This is 6 News.
The culmination of campaign 2014 is here, and the results are pouring in. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Jane Aldrich.
And I'm Sherry Jones. After months of campaigning, the results are finally here.
Finally, and candidates across the state are watching those results along with you right now.
We do have a team of reporters set to bring you a series of reports with the latest results and reactions tonight. Our Nick Perot and Krista Lamandola are in Detroit with the state's top Democrats and Republicans are gathered to take in tonight's results. We'll talk with them in just a moment. But first, less than an hour ago, ABC News has called the race for governor in favor of Republican incumbent Rick Snyder. At last check of the polls, he was carrying a commanding lead with more than 100,000 votes in his favor. So let's go now to Nick Perot, who is live at the Renaissance Center in Detroit. That's where some state Republicans, including Governor Snyder, as they tell us they remain cautiously optimistic about these projections.
Yeah, Nick, tell us, what is the mood like there right now?
Good evening, Jane. We haven't heard right now any official results in terms of a winner for governor, but we have been told by Chair Bobby Shostak's aide that we are expecting some guests here to speak here shortly, a few speakers, and then Governor Snyder is expected to speak here in just a few minutes. We are getting a live look right now inside the Renaissance Center, filled with people excited for the Republican headquarters, trying to get victory for that governor spot, to get re-election for Rick Snyder. Now, when I spoke with Bobby Shostak, the Republican chair, he said he knew tonight was going to be successful. He was confident, and I spoke with one of the governor's campaign members who told me that they feel very confident. Cautiously optimistic was our latest update in terms of winning re-election for Governor Snyder. Of course, that's only half the story. We have, of course, the Democratic side of things. We're going to go ahead and send it to Krista Lamandola, who is over at MGM, to get their side of things. Krista?
Well, Nick, there are definitely some mixed emotions in this room right now. Our results are showing that Snyder is the projected winner for the governor's position, but Democrats haven't thrown in the towel just yet. I talked to one Democrat who said Shower won't be speaking here tonight until they have firm results. Debbie Dingell also just spoke at the podium earlier, and she said no matter what happens tonight, today is a good day for Democrats. We'll be here as this continues and as Shower comes out. But for now, in Detroit, Krista Lamandola, 6 News.
All right, thank you, Krista. Let's turn now to the race for Carl Levin's seat in the United States Senate.
Senator Levin has held that position for the last 36 years, and tonight it appears that seat will stay in the hands of a Democrat. Alexandra Illich joins us now live in the studio with a breakdown of the numbers in that race. Alexandra?
Well, Jane and Sherry, this race was over very early tonight, just about an hour after the polls closed. CBS News called this race for Democrat Gary Peters. Here's why they were so confident to call this election before almost any other projections were coming in tonight. Peters was holding on to the double-digit lead he had shown for the last few weeks in the polling numbers. Here's what he had to say on getting the word that he was heading to Washington.
Now that I've gotten that call, I can say with a great deal of assurance that soon I will be joining Debbie Stabenow in the United States Senate of the United States.
And of course, this is obviously a big win for the Democrats. And Sherry Jones has reaction from 6 News Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic, what this means for one of Michigan's seats in the United States Senate moving forward.
In fact, that continues a 40-year reign of the Democrats holding on to this U.S. Senate race. Let's be clear here. Terry Lynn Land was never really in this thing. It was a failed campaign almost from the get-go. She fought the good fight, but at the end of the day, Gary Peters just swamped her. Basically, as the historians look back at the Land campaign, if you set out to write a script for how to lose the U.S. Senate, you would write what happened to Terry Lynn Land. But this does not take any of the credit away from Gary Peters. He ran a very tight campaign. A lot of money was spent, over $25 million, and so Gary Peters, now a congressman, becomes a U.S. senator starting the first of the year.
Now, do you think, Tim, that Gary Peters will have a successful and long run as his predecessor, Carl Levin, did?
Well, you know, once you get in these seats, you're there for 6 years, which is a long period of time. Carl Levin was one of a kind. Debbie Stabenow is showing that she's got some staying power. And so these once you become an incumbent, Sherry, it is very difficult to unseat that incumbent. And so will he be there for 40 years? I'm not even sure he knows he's going to live that long, but it's a significant win for him tonight and a significant setback for the Republicans who wanted to get this seat.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tim. Well, another long-held seat is in play tonight. This time it's the one held by United States Congressman Mike Rogers.
And as you know, Congressman Rogers is a Republican and has won 7 consecutive terms for the 8th Congressional District before he announced he'd be stepping down from his post to host a national radio show. Republican Mike Bishop is hoping to continue the streak of a Republican holding that office. Right now, he has 57% of the vote compared with 40% for his opponent.
The results look great. It appears to me that, and I haven't seen all the results yet, but it appears to me that the people have spoken, that this has been a referendum against unreasonable and growing government.
All right, let's go now to the 7th congressional race where Republican Tim Walberg is defending his seat against Democratic challenger Pam Burns. Right now, the numbers show that it is a very close race. Tim Walberg, of course, is in the lead right now, and we're going to hear from him.
Work with my colleagues in the U.S. House, as we've done now for 4 years, to limit government. When we increase the role of people, that's the general citizen, and decrease government, things work better. So in the area of jobs and economy, we want to develop an educational system at the local and state level that encourages training for the real world jobs.
Yeah, it's interesting. These numbers are coming in. We're getting results literally in our ears as we do this newscast, so you'll just have to follow with us here. We've got results from another congressional district in mid-Michigan, this time the 4th congressional district.
And that's a Republican Dave Camp seat is opening after he retires at the end of his term. Republican John Molinar is duking it out with Democrat Jeff Holmes for that spot. Right now, Molinar has been declared the winner in this race.
Well, I'm very encouraged by the support we're receiving throughout the 15 counties of the 4th Congressional District, and very grateful for the votes, and look forward to serving the people in Congress.
In the meantime, we're watching the race for the 71st District of the Michigan House. And right now, with 36% of the precincts reporting, Republican Tom Barrett is holding a 14% lead over Democrat incumbent Teresa Abed. And he is showing 57% of the vote going in his favor right now. But as you are about to hear, both sides say they're prepared for a long night.
I think at least a couple of hours, because we're waiting for Delta to come in, and that's usually the last one that comes in because it's the biggest district. So, but I'm feeling good. I mean, the energy's there. The districts that have come in, I'm higher than I was even 2 years ago.
Everywhere across Eaton County, you know, we didn't take anything for granted. We went out and talked to the voters and gave them a choice and said, look, you know, here are the options ahead of you. I certainly don't take your vote for granted. I want to do everything I can to earn your vote the right way.
And now that is just one of the many local races for seats in the State House of Representatives. In the 67th District, incumbent Democrat Tom Cochran is running against Republican challenger John Hayhoe. Right now, with 20% of the precincts reporting, Tom Cochran is holding on to a more than double-digit lead with 55% of the vote.
In the meantime, the 68th House District incumbent Democrat Andy Shore is taking on Republican challenger Rob Secor, and with a little less than half of those votes counted, it looks like Shore has a big lead over his Republican opponent there. And in the 69th District, incumbent Democrat Sam Singh is defending his seat against Republican challenger Frank Lambert. And with a third of those votes counted, Singh is leading by a margin of 2-1 at this time.
It feels great. You know, 2 years ago, we put a lot of time and energy to win this seat, continue kind of the Democratic traditions that Lynn Jondal and others have had. And I'm pleased to be able to have another 2 years to continue working on very important issues.
And there are lots of other races happening right now, and you can see the results of those at the bottom of your screen.
Let's check in now on the race for Attorney General. Our Amanda Gilbert joins us live in the newsroom with the latest numbers there. Amanda?
Jane, Sherry, right now it's looking like this race is safely in the hands of incumbent Bill Schuette. At the last check of the numbers we're seeing right now, Schuette was leading his closest challenger, Democrat Mark Totten, by 14%. The other candidates in the race combined for less than 5% total. So this was always a two-candidate race. We asked Attorney General Schuette what he planned to do if he won another turn.
States, and I want to implement the recommendations of the Commission on Human Trafficking. So, as a husband, a father, Attorney General, that you'd think that someone's daughter, Michigan's daughter, would be forced into the sex slave market. It turns your stomach.
Schuette also mentioned that he wants to make sure consumers are protected in the state and wants to see a comprehensive review of the safety regulations placed on oil companies that run pipelines under the Great Lakes. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Let's turn to another state official who's looking to keep her spot. It is Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. She's running against Democratic challenger Godfrey Dillard. Right now, numbers show that Johnson with a very large lead in the precincts that are reporting, at some point showing a lead of 20 points.
Here in Lansing and some surrounding areas, voters were asked to weigh in on two proposals dealing with the Lansing Board of Water and Light. And one proposal asked for voters to allow the mayor of Lansing to take over control of the Board of Water and Light if or when an emergency is declared. At this hour, numbers show that with about 3/4 of the precincts responding, more than 60% of the people are in support of that measure. The other proposal asks to expand the representation of the Board of Water and Light to more communities. And after power outages hit thousands of BWL customers back in December, so far, with 75% of the precincts reporting, voters are overwhelmingly approving that proposal. The Lansing City Council approved the request to add 3 new seats as well. The representatives would come from utility service areas and also municipalities located outside of Lansing. Those were not the only proposals we saw on the ballot today, and Sherry Jones has an update for us on those. Sherry?
Well, Jane, this has been a controversial topic since the state's first organized wolf hunt was held in the Upper Peninsula this winter. Hunters did not reach the quota of wolves that they could kill, but some groups want to see a stop to the hunt, while others are trying to give the state the power to put any animal on the game list. Word came down last month from the State Natural Resource Commission that there will not be a wolf hunt this year. Officials there say they do not have the authority to set another gray wolf hunt in the UP. But voters were asked today to establish a season for hunting wolves and to set up a season for when it would happen every year. Right now, results show that most people are voting no to that proposal, with 56% of people turning down the hunt. Now, the second proposal asked voters if the Natural Resources Commission should be allowed to designate wolves and other animals as game without any legislative action. Voters are also sticking with keeping wolves and other animals off that hunting list, with 20% of precincts reporting. We show about 64% of people saying no to that proposal. Now, like we said, even with today's votes, the Department of Natural Resources says there will not be a wolf hunt this year. So we're just going to have to wait and see what impact these proposals will have on future hunts. Let's send it now back to Jane with a look at the race for the Michigan Supreme Court.
All right, Sherry, thank you. Lots of candidates on the ballot for this one, so let's get straight to the numbers that we have in right now. Take a look. 5 candidates are running for 2 open seats that each carry an 8-year term. And with about 1/3 of the votes in at this point, incumbent Brian Zara is leading, and trial lawyer Richard Bernstein is claiming the top 2 spots. There's also a seat open for a 2-year term on the bench. And with 1/3 of the votes counted, incumbent David Viviano has a lead, commanding lead, in fact, over challengers Deborah Thomas and Carrie Morgan. And welcome back. We're going to turn our attention now to the latest on the campaign trail right here in mid-Michigan, where candidates are making a last-minute push all day long for your vote. Welcome back. Would you pay $75 a year to keep law enforcement out on the roads protecting you and your family?
Well, that's exactly what voters in Shiawassee County were asked to vote on today, and a millage for the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's officials said without passing this millage, close to 24 could have to turn in their badges to balance the 2015 budget, and the department would only be able to keep their detective and jail staff. Now, with 38% of the precincts reporting, voters so far have decided against the millage, with 60% of voters saying no.
In the meantime, another millage was up for vote in Ingham County, this time to see if voters wanted to put some tax dollars to improve county parks. The $500,000 increase would amount to about $50 a year for a home valued at $100,000. And in the first year, it would produce just over $3 million for park improvements. Right now, with 75% of the precincts in, 57% of people are saying yes to this millage. Well, we're going to take a short break, but we have much more campaign information for you.
That's right. We're going to look at some Senate races across the country that could tip the balance of power in the Senate. And we're going to look at that. Coming up, we'll have the results next when 6 News at 11 continues.
Welcome back, and thanks for spending your evening with us. You know, some communities were asked to vote for the leaderships of their schools today.
In Holt, a controversy has been brewing since January when the school board voted to restructure some of its schools, sending freshman students to a building with sophomores and juniors and then moving seniors to their own building. Well, 6 candidates are running for 3 open 6-year terms on the school board, and with about a third of the vote counted, Perry Needham and Rosnick are the first, second, and third, but it's a very close race. You can see Anderson, Malatinsky, and Ford just 1, 2, and 3 points from the top 3.
There are also 3 other candidates running to fill a spot for a partial term on the board, and that term runs through 2018. Julie Bureau is winning big with about 18% of the votes counted there. And in Lansing, 7 candidates are running for a spot on the Lansing Public School Board. Beverly Lopez and 2 of the top 3, and Shirley Rogers leading all comers in a tight race with just 10% of the votes counted in both of those full-term votes for Lansing and in Holt. We are going to continue to watch things for you.
This is a 6 News special report.
Well, thank you for tuning in. I'm Sherry Jones. ABC News has called the election for governor in favor of Rick Snyder. He is speaking right now in Detroit, and that's where we join the crowd now live. And that was Governor Rick Snyder thanking all of his supporters and all of Michigan to re-electing him for another 4 years. Now, we have a number of breaking updates to tell you about at this hour. The Associated Press has called the race to replace U.S. Congressman Mike Rogers in favor of Republican Mike Bishop, with 85% of precincts reporting. Mike Bishop holds 57% of the vote. That's a 17% lead over Democrat Eric Schertzing. And Attorney General Bill Schuette will keep his position as well. The Associated Press is declaring Schuette the winner over his Democratic challenger Mark Totten. Schuette pulled in 52% of the vote. Let's turn now to another state official who's keeping her spot. It is Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. The AP has declared her the winner over her Democratic challenger Godfrey Dillard with 55% of the vote. Let's go now to the 7th congressional race where Republican Tim Walberg has successfully defended his seat against Democratic challenger Pam Burns. And the Associated Press declared Walberg the winner with 55% of the vote. That is a double-digit lead over Pam Burns' 39% total. In the meantime, in the 68th House District, incumbent Democrat Andy Shore has been declared the victor by the Associated Press. He was last leading with 77% of the vote. For all the latest election information, as always, head to our website, WLNS.com. Click on the election icon at the top of the page.
This has been a 6 News special report. We now return to regularly scheduled programming.